Hey, folks, and welcome to another edition of Dog Walk Talk. As always, I'm your host, Jake Roos, and with me, as always, from DawgsHQ, beat writer, Palmer Thombs. PT, what's good, brother?
Doing well. It's been a rainy week here in Athens, but the bright sky came out this afternoon. Feeling a lot better and ready to hit the road up to Nashville here before too long.
Listen to this guy. The bright sky came out. You can tell he's a writer, can't you? No, Palmer, a little bit of a homecoming for you. People may not know you are from the Music City, and so a chance for you to get back. I know that your mom is excited to get you back. She's made that pretty abundantly clear, I think, over the course of this week. But, Georgia been preparing for this one. A matchup which I won't say was highly anticipated. I don't think anybody's been, dying or falling all over themselves to get to Vandy, but it does represent a turn in the schedule when you get past this one. This is kind of your last of the tune-up games, I guess, if you will, if you considered Clemson one. Not really, but of the 3-game stretch, this is the last one. So I think an important one for Georgia to finish strong with, kind of close out September with the perfect record. I think that's everybody's expectation is that Georgia's going to win this one. We'll talk about some odds and the spread and all that later on. But I guess just going into this game, Palmer, what are you looking for the Bulldogs to do and accomplish in order, I guess, to make another step and get ready for that meat of the schedule?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we've been talking about, me and you, it's been a conversation of topic of conversation with the Georgia beat is Georgia's run game, and you've seen them continue to improve. Each game the rushing total has gone up, and I think playing against Vanderbilt, you'd like to see that again. This is a physical football team. Kirby Smart said that anytime you go up against Vanderbilt, you're in for a physical game. I don't know how much of that was a little bit of hyperbole, but with Vanderbilt being coached by a defensive-minded guy in Clark Lee, you expect the Commodores to come ready to play on defense, and I certainly think that'll be the case. Saturday in Nashville. I think I would. The one thing that I want to see, and I think Georgia fans in general want to see, is one running back kind of steal the show. So far, every game it's been a group effort. They've gotten over 100 yards each game, but I think the highest total by a back is 74, something like that. Zamir White against Clemson. And obviously, if you look back at these last 2 games, you've had some opportunities to Georgia's kind of run away with it. Georgia's been up, multiple scores at the half, been in an opportunity, had a chance, been in a position to get some younger guys in the game, get some guys some reps. And that's where you've seen Kendall Milton get a lot of carries. He led the team in carries and yards on Saturday against South Carolina. That's where you've seen Daijun Edwards get some carries. And I think, going forward, once you get into this meat of the schedule that Georgia's about to hit, once the calendar turns to October, they're going to cut that rotation down. And I think you're likely to start seeing that this week against Vanderbilt, getting those guys accustomed to carrying the load several times, throughout the game and making that an emphasis. So I look at that offensively. Defensively, the big highlight has been Georgia has scored in 4 straight games on defense. That goes back to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl last year when Azeez Ojulari ended the game quite literally in the last play of the game there. They got a stack for a safety, carry that momentum into 2021. You had the pick sixes against Clemson and UAB, and then another safety this past Saturday against South Carolina. I think you want to see the defense. Can they extend that streak to 5, or is it going to come to a close? That they did lose their streak of holding the opponents without an offensive score. That came to a close against South Carolina late in that game, fourth quarter. So, I think overall you want to see Georgia continue to take steps in the right direction. You want to continue to see them be the team that they've shown that they are, the number 2 team in the country, putting up a fight for that number 1 spot. And I feel like if Alabama slips, Georgia is going to be ready to take that spot.
I think you're getting a little greedy with this touchdown streak by the defense, or the scoring streak by the defense. I mean, that's just an anomaly, in my opinion. I mean, nobody does that. I mean, this is the fact that they've been able to keep it rolling like this is wildly impressive. But, to me, that's sort of like that touchdown streak. Like, eventually that's got to get broken, right? So we'll see. I don't know. I think that it's wild that that's something that we can even talk about, is like, can they maintain this thing? I agree with you on the question about the backs. But again, I think that this may have been a situation where, Georgia's been in several games to this point where teams have sold out to stop the run, and they've just been able to take what they've been given. And I think that that's got to be really encouraging if you're a Georgia fan, because the fact of the matter is they are able to take it through the air. They are able to score in that way, and they are able to affect the game in that way, which is something that maybe wasn't clicking on as many cylinders in the past. Now it feels like, they've really kind of caught a stride with that. So teams are really having to account for both things. And, who knows? Maybe soon they'll have to account for George Pickens, who was out there at practice the other day, and seems like maybe he's taken a little step forward. I don't know that that's the case just yet. I'm not saying he's playing against Vanderbilt, so nobody quote me on that.
Yeah, and hey, look who's been hot on predictions the last couple of weeks, and look who brought him up several times on Sunday. Did not know that we were going to see Pickens Monday at practice, but I think Georgia fans are certainly excited to at least be hearing his name once again, see that he's back out on the field, non-contact uniform there. We asked Kirby for an update yesterday, and he, just said that George is coming along well. George is really, his body is really naturally handling this recovery well. Didn't necessarily say that he's ahead of schedule, but said that, that there is a timeline, steps, a process that Ron Corson has set up for all these guys that have gone through ACL injuries. He's dealt with plenty of them in his history at Georgia. And, I'm not sure that there's anyone better to be rehabbing that injury around than Ron Corson. So, I don't, and I wrote this up in my piece today. I don't think we're seeing George Pickens on the field in the next couple of weeks, but I do think it's encouraging that he's back out there. I think it's encouraging that he's with the team and that he didn't, make the decision to go, train for the NFL, prepare for the NFL by himself. But I also think it's encouraging that he's back out there at practice, was running routes. It wasn't just straight line running. And that's, in that progression that Ron Corson has, that's got to be one of those steps. You go from straight line running to being able to cut. He was running routes and it wasn't just a go route. Pickens is great at that go route, but it wasn't just that. So they were putting his knee to the test a little bit on Monday. And I'm not sure how long he's been out there at practice. Kirby said that it's been about 2 weeks.
I bet you don't know that. I bet it's because that's the first and only practice you've seen all year.
Right. And maybe the only one we do see all year. But, the Kirby said 2 weeks ago, Pickens, Corson and Pickens' mother went to visit with Dr. James Andrews, who performed the surgery back in March. He called him the foremost authority in this situation, and that Andrews had cleared him for some non-contact football activities. So all encouraging signs. I still kind of target that Missouri game. It's the week after Florida, so first week of November. As a potential return date for him. He's had two of his best games of his career have come against Missouri, put up a pair of touchdowns each time against the Tigers. Would be, kind of story-esque if he came back and put up 2 touchdowns against them in a return from an ACL injury. I think if Georgia's in a situation where they are in the contention for the college football playoff, you're definitely looking at hoping to see Pickens out there in December. That would be, tomorrow is 6 months post-injury. 9 months post-injury would be in December. So if Georgia's in contention, playing for an SEC championship game, a college football playoff spot or a spot in the national championship, I would not surprise me to see Pickens back out there then.
Look, if you get the chance to bring him back and you do it in front of the home crowd in Sanford Stadium, that's going to be a wild, wild time. With the first time, if that man gets a chance to see his face up on the video board again, it's going to be something else. That would be exciting. A lot of talk about George Pickens this week. Obviously, I think that's drawn a lot of eyes. Some speculation about Tyke Smith and Darnell Washington. Seems kind of the same old same with them. Maybe they're getting closer. I don't think you or I believe that they're going to be playing against Vanderbilt or to even making the trip on as part of a travel roster. But let's talk about the Commodores a little bit. I mean, this isn't a team that scares people. I mean, rightfully so. It's Vanderbilt first off, and then it's a rebuilding Vanderbilt. So they've got both things working against them. It's a home game for them. The last time I went to a Vanderbilt Georgia game, it was a home game for the Dogs. I mean, it was in name alone their stadium, but it's Georgia's going to travel well to this one. Everybody always enjoys hanging out up in Nashville. It's always a great time. Is there anything that you look at on this Vanderbilt team and you think, even for a second, gives you a little bit of pause and says, well, Georgia's got to figure out a way to deal with that?
Not really. I mean, quite frankly, not really. Next question. No. I think if you look at Vanderbilt and the guys that they've got, some of the bigger names that they have, Ken Seals is a sophomore quarterback for them, has started all 3 games, so far this season. And, was one of the more impressive freshmen last season in the SEC in terms of quarterbacks. Obviously there aren't that many freshman quarterbacks starting in the SEC, but Seals did that last year for the Commodores and is back this year. And in speaking with Billy Derrick, I've got a Q&A coming out with him, later this afternoon, or, I guess we're recording this on Wednesday. So hopefully I'll have it out Thursday morning along with this podcast. Seals Billy told me that Seals it's been hot and cold with him. It's been up and down. He did not have a great game in Vanderbilt's first game of the season, a loss to an FCS Eastern Tennessee. In order to lose a game like that as an SEC team, you're probably not going to have a great outing from your quarterback. But Vanderbilt goes on the road and beats Colorado State. That's not an easy trip to make, and they had a hard fight against them. Seals had a good game against them, and then this past weekend against Stanford, it was a little bit of an average game. He's thrown 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year. I think the biggest thing for him is if you're turning the ball over, you're not giving your team a chance, especially against Georgia. And so he's got to control the ball. He doesn't have to play outstanding. It's not like he has to, put up Heisman-like numbers there, but he can't, be hurting them. In terms of running backs, the big story for the Commodores, Ramon Davis, junior running back for them, leading rusher on the season. He's out for the year. He had surgery this week and will be done. So look at Rocco Griffin, great name, by the way. He would be the next guy up. Outside of Davis, they've got rushing touchdown on the season, and that's a QB sneak from Ken Seals. So I think Rocco Griffin would be your next guy there, but they are really thin in that running back room. Receiving, they've got 3 guys that really stand out to me. Chris Pierce Jr., he's a senior wide receiver, leads the team in receiving yards, has a touchdown, 14 receptions, 181 yards, and 1 touchdown, averaging 60 yards per game. That's the team high there. He's one of the more bigger outside threats that they've got. Will Shepard is another outside receiver for them, sophomore. He's got the most, leads the team in catches with 19, 169 yards, has not gotten in the end zone. And then Cam Johnson, who's a senior, and someone that I played high school football against, which is weird to cover him. But an incredible athlete. He's what's that?
I said, what a flex for them.
But he's going to be on the inside for them in the slot. 15 receptions, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. He leads the team there. So you've got a different team leader in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. I think, when you're looking at those 3 categories, if you've got 3 leaders there, those are your 3 guys to look at. And then, like we mentioned earlier, this is a defensive led team with their head coach, Clark Lee, who was at Notre Dame the last couple of seasons. He's not working with the talent that he had there, but he's got a couple of guys that stand out. Anthony Orji and Ethan Barr, two guys with 25 plus tackles. I mean, just looking at tackles per game, you got 9 for Orji there, and then 8.33 for Barr. The next guy is 4.67. So those two guys are your leaders at linebacker. Jalen Mahoney is another guy. He's got their lone interception on the season. So in terms of the defense, they don't have a marquee player. They don't have a Zach Cunningham who had a big game against Georgia back in 2016. They don't have a guy like that. But they've got some guys. They're well coached. Obviously, you're dealing with the team that's intelligent. And so you try and lean, if you're Vanderbilt, you try and lean on that physicality, that intelligence, that coaching, and just that heart, that conditioning, and that want to go get it. So that's kind of what I see in the Commodores. Like I said earlier, is there anything that scares me about them? Not really. If I'm Georgia, not really. But they've it's still an SEC team, and there's certainly some talented players out there taking the field for Vanderbilt.
I got to know, did you lock Cam Johnson down? Because, I know that you were out there at corner at the time.
Yeah. You know me. I was out there at corner. No, I was on the offensive line, and his Brentwood Academy team beat my team for 3 straight state championships. So thanks there, Jake.
Yeah. No problem. No, like I say, I kind of do this every week. I take a look at the roster and see if there are guys that I remember covering. That's sort of, like I said, the guys that Georgia recruits are the guys that Alabama recruits, or the guys that Clemson recruits. So can they be the same guys? Can it, is there any crossover? The Orji brothers are definitely 2 that I remember for sure, especially the older one, Alex, really good player. I think was like the first top 50 or top 100 player to ever go to Vanderbilt. So had a really unique distinction, and he's done a good job there. I think he'll be fine. The Wright brothers out of Woodward Academy down there in Atlanta, Mike Wright and Alan Wright, a couple good players. Saw those guys in high school. Amir Abdur-Rahim or Rahman was a guy. I mean, he's a legit 6'4". He's more of a tight end almost out there playing that wide receiver position. So impressive guy. And then you mentioned this guy, Rocco Griffin. I know that he's coming in, spelling the guy who was leading the team. But to me, Griffin is a good player. Go back and watch the film on him. He was a kid that maybe was a little bit underrated in high school, I would say. So again, I agree with you. I'm not saying that these are world beaters. These are not. The talent differential here is massive. And you saw a smaller talent differential last week against the Gamecocks, and you saw the outcome of that game. So Vanderbilt, a long way to go. I hope Clark Lee gets the patience. I think that they've got a good thing going as far as the people that are in place there. It's just a tough thing to build. I mean, Vanderbilt's a tough job. You gotta recruit the right kids, and you can't really miss on your evaluations when it comes to those guys. I guess moving into this game, Palmer, a couple things to touch on. Spread looking between 34.5 and 35.5. Let's just call it 35 because that's on several books as well. You think Georgia's able to get over that hump? That's a pretty large spread for an SEC game.
Yeah, like you said, that's a large spread. I'll take it. I'll take Georgia. I would not surprise me to see them win this game by 42 points right there. That's 6 touchdowns. It's a tough task. But that's why the point spread is out there to kind of even the playing field. I don't know that I would take. I don't know. That's a really tough one because the more that I think about it, if 35 points is a lot, and if you're asking me to go into this game, let's say you're Georgia and you go into this game down 35-0, I don't know that you're coming back to win this game. But obviously they don't. It starts with a clean slate. It's 0-0, and I think that there's a good chance that Georgia could win this one by more than that. I'll take them. I'll take Georgia to win against the spread, but I don't love it.
I think that they cover it pretty well, to be honest with you. I think that it's one of those situations where, I mean, look back on the UAB game. I didn't think they'd cover the spread in that game, primarily because of the respect that I felt like that Kirby had for Bill Clark. A lot of Clarks going on this year. The respect that he had for him. This is a different field Georgia team in that regard. They're kind of keeping their foot on the throat of these people and really making it so there's no chance that they're coming back. I mean, they didn't take it easy on Shane Beamer. They didn't take it easy on Bill Clark. They sure as hell didn't take it easy on Dabo Swinney when they had the chance. I mean, they wanted to put that one away too. So this is a situation where they've got a little bit different mentality, I think. And for me, I think that that's a doable spread, primarily because I just don't see where points are coming from for Vanderbilt. I don't see how they're going to score. I don't think that I don't think they've just got enough to do that. I mean, they were able to get to Luke Doty and affect him last week. They were able to get to DJ from Clemson. I'm not even going to attempt the last name, but got to him 7 times in the first game. That's a whole different level of talent on an offensive line than what you're talking about when you come into Vanderbilt. So I just don't see it. I think Georgia covers that spread. To me, it feels like a pretty easy one, to be honest with you. Now it's been a little bit different.
And one thing I'll add, I think you gotta wonder, does Georgia hold any little bit of bad blood out for revenge for not getting to play these guys last year? That was supposed to be the senior day game for that a very decorated Georgia senior class there. A group that had gone to the national championship and such. They didn't get there. They didn't get to recognize them at home in Athens. And so, is Kirby gonna, he'll never admit it and out in the public. But is he gonna hold that against Vanderbilt and maybe try and, run up the score a little bit? I think back to that Vanderbilt Alabama game a couple years ago. There was no bad blood there. And Alabama ran away with it big time. I think Georgia has the potential to do that. And like I said, if these guys hold out a little bit of bad blood, ill will towards the Commodores, even with the turnover, on the roster, on the coaching staff and such, it's still the same Vanderbilt team. It's still the same name. And you're gonna, that's gonna creep into the back of some of these guys' minds on Saturday.
I agree. Now, I was going to ask you about top performers, but I'm actually going to switch that question up just a little bit because you touched on something earlier on in the podcast that I think really might be a little bit more interesting. Do you think a back breaks 100 yards in this game? And if so, who do you think that back is?
That's a tough question, man. Jake, you're always hitting me with these. I will say no. Because I think this is going to be a game like some of the previous ones where you've seen that rotation get 4 and 5 deep. I think once you get into the meat of the schedule, you're not going to see Dajon Edwards getting carries regularly. And in these last couple of games, you've seen him get those carries regularly. So I don't think so. I still think that you're going to see, all 5 of those running backs get 5+ carries. And honestly, I'm not sure that you're going to see any of them get over 10. And that's really tough to ask. If let's say that you're not getting over 10, you got to average 10 yards, at least 10 yards a pop. And so I'll say no, but I think if anyone was to do it, I'll take James Cook with his ability to break off a long one. We saw some of that burst in with his touchdown run on the first drive of the game last week. I think it was a 24-yarder or something. He's got that ability to break a long one. And so, like that situation, he could have gone for a lot more than 24. That's all the, grass that he had ahead of him to cover. But, let's say Georgia gives it to him on their own 20. He's got 80 yards to run. All he needs there is another 20. So if there's someone to do it, I'll take James Cook, but I don't think that any of these backs get to that number.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I just have a sneaking feeling that they do. They've made a little step forward each week. I think that, Kendall Milton, what was he like 70 yards or 60 something, 67 last week. Like you said, Zamir White, 70. They've kind of been flirting with the number. I think that you're probably able to get some chunk plays, and that's why I think that you probably get it this week. So my guess is yes, and I think Kendall Milton will be the one to do it. I'm riding the Kendall Milton horse this year. All right,
Does he get into the end zone for his first career touchdown?
I think that this lines up well for him. I don't see why you wouldn't give him that opportunity to. Yeah, Zamir's going to be there too, but to me, those are your two battering rams at the goal line. I think that one of the two gets an opportunity. I think that Kendall can do it this week. All right. Last one here for you. Georgia defense, what everybody's been talking about, rightfully so. 3 sacks, kind of been that number here. Do they hit the 3 sack mark again this week, or he's not even waiting on this one?
Yes,
this was a softball, huh?
Yes, with this Georgia, with this Vanderbilt offensive line in a little bit of a rotation, kind of in shambles. I think Georgia does hit that. They how many did they have against South Carolina? Did they hit that 3 there?
Well, they had at least 2. I think they made it.
I think that they got it. They had 3 against UAB, obviously 7 against Clemson. I think this you're going to have to start upping that number, because I think that this Georgia team could get 3 sacks on anybody. I really do.
That's fair. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to play the average right now, and we'll see. Look, 3 next week may be a little bit higher ask. I'm not, especially with a Sam Pittman coached offensive line. I know there's another guy, but for God's sakes, the guy's been a career offensive line coach. So I like his chances there. All right, Palmer, let's wrap this one up. You are the Nashville native. You're the expert in the area. Tell the people where they need to be going, man. Where does Palmer Thombs go when he goes home? What calls to you when you get a chance to get back to home?
Besides cheap Mexican food, which I do love me some neighborhood cheap Mexican food, I'll take Martin's Barbecue. Great spot there. They've got a couple of different locations in Nashville. Really, really, really good barbecue. If you're looking for something more downtown in that Broadway area, Tin Roof is another great spot. And if you're looking for something really close to Vanderbilt, I'll hit you with the cheap Mexican, San Antonio Taco Company. That's a staple. So if you're headed to Nashville, great spots all over. Really can't go wrong. But those are 3 of my favorites. I
got to ask you this, because everybody's going to want to know. I did the first time I went to Nashville. Where do you go for hot chicken? Do you have a spot?
I mean, I'm a big McDougal's fan. It's not necessarily a hot chicken place. It's not known for their hot chicken. And I will say, we've got our producer Jake Evans in the chat. He's also a Nashville native, giving his suggestions. Prince is there. That's his hot chicken place. But I'm a big McDougal's guy. They've got a little bit of it all. But Prince's is another great option, and then Hattie B's. But honestly, I mean, every one of these places has adopted hot chicken as a Nashville thing, and so you really can't go wrong anywhere.
I'm a big fan of Pepper Fire at 400 degrees as well. I think that they do a good job. And listen, if you've never had hot chicken, go do it one time and get it as hot as you can, because you cannot believe how damn hot it can be. All right, Palmer, we'll be looking forward to all the coverage. I know you got us covered on Saturday, and we appreciate that. Get over to DawgsHQ. Check it out. We got a lot of recruiting scoop. We got a lot of team news. We're keeping you up to date on all things Dogs over there. So make sure you come by, give us a click. And hey, if you're listening to the podcast, rate us 5 stars, please. If you would, that would be very, very appreciated. For Palmer Thombs, I'm Jake Roos as well, and we'll sign it off with that one.